Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the Three Topics Gamer, and I have a somewhat interesting top 5 list video to share with you guys today. Now, by the time that this video is uploaded, it will be in the month of October, so heck, this is the season for horror. Now, I personally am not a big horror fan. However, there are a number of horror movies and games that I actually am a big fan of and rather do enjoy watching over and over again. Now, for this particular list, I decided I'm going to focusing on my top 5 favorite horror movies. I'll be sure to upload a video next after this one all over my top 5 favorite horror video games. So before I get into my list, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep track of me on my future videos moving forward, and hopefully your subscription will help grow the channel. Now, my horror list might surprise some people, as there definitely are some classic horror films and franchises that won't be on this list. So if you're expecting to see things like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or Hellraiser or anything like that, it's wrong list. That I could do a whole list of classic movie monsters and killers, but that's not what this list is about. So starting off with the first, taking the number 5 spot on my list, has to go to Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn. This is without question my favorite entry in the classic Evil Dead series. I was not a fan of what they did in the remake, as well as the TV show. Even though the TV show was great, I thought it was a little bit more comedic and less horror. This one, I think, felt the proper balance. I thought the first one was pure horror. This one had horror, but a little bit of semi-comedy. Not a lot. I'd say like 10% comedy. And then when you go to like Army of Darkness, that's like absolutely almost like zero horror. It's all for comedy. But I thought the whole concept, pretty straightforward concept. You have this couple drive out into the middle of the woods to this cabin, and the girlfriend gets possessed by an evil demon and then gets killed by the boyfriend, and then the relatives, or I think the daughter of the original owners of that house, who are stumbling the book of the Necronomicon, I think that's how it says, pretty much have to band together in order to survive the night and hopefully not die. A lot of great practical effects, a lot of iconic scenes. Ash is Bruce Campbell, iconic character. Probably one of the earliest iconic characters in horror movie history, at least in my memory. I know that there were definitely much more iconic ones. You go back to the old Universal monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein and the Invisible Man, stuff like that. But I'm talking about heroes in a horror franchise. You cannot go any more cooler than Ash. And I think that he is, in my opinion, at the best in terms of overall performance in this particular film in general. I think one of my favorite scenes that it's so simple in terms of how it was filmed, but it's so effective, is when Ash is getting chased by some kind of evil spirit or essence. You don't know what exactly is chasing him, but it gets so close and it's just chasing him all throughout the cabin. It's just it always works. Didn't work so well in Army of Darkness, but it certainly worked out here, which is why, and that's just one of the many reasons why I would have to put Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn as number 5 on my list. Going into number 4 is probably the most recent movie that has come out on this list, and it has to go to Get Out. Now, as a black man, this one is kind of personal to me. The whole concept of you've got this group of crazy white people that are capturing black people and inserting their brains from their, shriveled up bodies and putting them into the bodies of, physically superior, or I could say younger bodies. I thought our hero was probably the single smartest black person I've ever seen in a movie. How he dispatched... Oh snap. I should have put a spoiler warning. Okay, too late. This movie's years old. Who cares? The way he dispatched the family at the end made him a total boss. And I absolutely was a big fan of the ending. I have seen this film several times. In fact, every chance I got, I would typically bring this film with me and show my friends that haven't had a chance to see it, because this film really did change the games in terms of what you could do with horror and breaking a lot of stereotypes that had been in present, especially when it came to black people and horror movies. And that's why this one has a very special place in my heart. This was definitely one of the best films that I saw when the year it came out, and it still remains one of my favorite horror films of all time, with a concept that was very, very unique, hadn't been done before as far as I was concerned, and anything that came after it was just be trying to copy it and probably not be able to execute it just as well, which is why Get Out is number 4 on my list. Going into number 3 is going to go to my all-time favorite zombie film of all time, and it has to go to, surprisingly, the remake of Dawn of the Dead. Now, I am aware that the original Dawn of the Dead, the black and white Dawn of the Dead, is a classic, but I actually am much more of a fan of the remake. I think that how they handled a zombie infestation is yet to be topped in the sense of they actually treat it quite seriously, and they have a very, very respectable cast of characters that aren't perfect. Some of them are scumbags, some of them are assholes, some of them are people you hope to see get killed, and then some of them are just innocent people just trying to survive in this zombie apocalypse. I thought how they tried to execute plans and progress the story was very, very keen. I thought the interaction between characters was very, very awesome. I thought the interaction between Andy, the gun guy, and and the others, I thought the interactions with the billboards was classic. It had great music, had great atmosphere, had great kills, even though they were pretty standard, mindless. And I think, without question, the zombies in this film are the scariest I've ever seen in any other film. Not even in Resident Evil. I mean, let's not even talk about the Resident Evil films. But I would say when it came to presenting zombies as like a scary threat and something that I wouldn't want to deal with, this film got it right perfectly, which is why it still remains my favorite zombie film of all time, as well as taking the number 3 spot as my favorite horror film of all time. Going into number 2 is going to surprise some people, but this is a classic. This is perhaps one of the classic horror films that I've really enjoyed, and that is the original The Thing. Very interesting concept, very well executed. The use of practical effects it helps this film stand out. The idea that you have all these workers in Antarctica having to deal with this specimen that can kind of copy bodies and take them over, and then it's just, you don't know who you can trust. It's kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers on steroids, but you're isolated. And then you just kind of realize you don't want to let this thing go. Now, some people didn't like the remake or updated version. I thought it was okay for what it was trying to do, but it couldn't hold a candle up to the original. I think that Kurt Russell's primary character being the main protagonist I thought was great. I thought the use of suspense was excellent. And the creature designs, yeesh. I mean, if you ever have a chance to go back and watch the making of The Thing, it is amazing how they were able to pull off some of these effects. Some of them are just creepy, some of them are very creative, and as I said earlier, some of them really holds up. This is a classic film that is just timeless. If there's anyone that has not had a chance to see this film, please do so. You are really missing out on something special. But sadly, it has to take the number 2 spot on my list. And now we go into number 1. My number 1 favorite horror film of all time has to go to Event Horizon, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. And believe it or not, this is actually the film that he did after he did Mortal Kombat, but did not come back for Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But I think that when it comes to what we were given, I think is a fair trade. I think I would take this over another Mortal Kombat movie, even though maybe if he had directed the second one would have been better. But I'm getting off topic. The purpose of Event Horizon is you basically have to deal with this space crew that basically have to try to, great air conditioning, have to retrieve a ship that was lost after a supposed accident, and then you find out that it wasn't an accident, and what happens is that there was this device on the ship that allowed it to actually cross dimensions, and it brought some entity from hell back with it, and now it is killing off the crew members one by one, and they have to find a way to get off the ship and get home. A very simple concept. I think it's the fact that it was the very first ghost ship movie of its kind. As far as I can recall, no other movie had tried doing this, and the fact that it is in space, which means it is even more isolated. There's no monsters. It's just the element of this evil essence, and it's having a psychological effect on everyone. And there are so many horrific images of seeing what this ship does. Just being on this ship has such a negative effect on its crew that it causes them to die one by one in very horrible ways. And by the end, you just are just hoping that someone manages to get off the ship and go home. And I can say it very much was able to pull it off greatly. I thought the cast was absolutely amazing. This is my personal favorite Lawrence Fishburne film, even more so than his portrayal of Morpheus in The Matrix. This is definitely my favorite film of his, and it still remains probably one of the creepiest. This is something that had inspiration elements from, say, something like even Dead Space. This is why Dead Space is like my favorite horror video game of all time because it has that ship element. I think that when you're able to take a horror element and take it off from Earth, it means you're separating it from the world itself. You didn't put it in this isolated area where there's nowhere that they could go and they're just trying to escape. I think that adds an extra element of horror, suspense, isolation that is still creepy. And even to this day, even though I've seen this film well over 50 times, I still get freaked out of things that happen in this film that I still find very, very disturbing. There are some pretty gruesome images in this film, and if you haven't had a chance to see this film, please do so because you're doing yourself a disservice. So that is my list of my personal top 5 favorite horror films that I really enjoy. Now that you guys know my list, I would like to know what are your personal top 5 favorite horror films of all time. Share your list with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I will catch you all next time.